Hello, my name is Kenny Davila and this is an update on how to annotate line charts using the updated chart annotation tools. To begin the process, we will click on Edit Data. The first thing that we need to make sure is that the lines are correct. In this case, we click on Edit Line Number and we can see that there are two lines in the chart and there are two lines correctly inferred. Whether you need to add or remove, it depends on whether the legend is correct and accurate or if there is no legend in the chart, and then you will have to add more unnamed lines, or cases where you might have more than one legend but one of them doesn't represent data series and you might need to select some of the extra entries and remove them. In this case, everything is correct, so we click on Return. The next thing is to edit the data of each individual line. So we click on Edit Line Data and we will select which line we want to edit. The first one is going to be the red line, which is this one, and we click on Edit Points. Because both the overlay line and the original line are red, it's going to be a bit hard to work on this space, so we switch to the grayscale mode. And we just need to remember that we need to highlight the lighter line. So the first thing that we are going to do is to edit the two default points to the correct beginning and ending of this line. We click on Edit Points, and now we can drag these points in the line to their current positions. This is different from the original version of the tool where you had to select the individual points and click on them or double click them to make changes. You can always click on Edit Points to start editing the points. If you want to have a shortcut instead of having to come here and you want to adjust one point in particular, you can always double click it and then start dragging, and then click on Cancel once that you're done. Once that we have adjusted the beginning and the ending of the line that we want to annotate, we want to add as many intermediate points as we need to roughly annotate the shape. Notice that this is a very complex shape and we don't want to get every single peak on the line, but we want to roughly capture the shape it has. So the thing that we're going to do first is to zoom in to an appropriate zoom level, and we will click on the Add Points button to start adding points. In this case, we will start from the left side. So we start by clicking on some specific points, and as you see, the more points that we add, the closer the line becomes to the one that we want to annotate. Once again, these little small peaks are hard to capture and in some cases are not necessarily that informative, so it's fine if you just annotate the coarse shape of the line with enough level of detail to know where there are some major peaks. This part of the system behaves very similar to the previous version, where you have this mode where you can also click on the specific position of the points that you want to add. Now, where it also has the other mode that if I cancel here and I want to add one point in particular, I can also just double click that point and the point will get added to the line automatically without going to the add points mode, just one point at a time. But in cases where you need to annotate a full line from the beginning, it's better to just move to the add points because that will make your job faster. This option should be considered only for cases where you want to refine a specific portion of the line. Don't worry too much if at the first attempt you don't get the shape of the line so accurate. You can always edit the position of these points. So what I'm trying to do here is to make sure that I add enough points to adjust later. I just skip adding more points on this side, and once that I'm satisfied with the number of points, I click on cancel. Now the next thing that we want to do is to quickly refine these positions. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but we can make sure that it is coarsely aligned with the source. So we click on edit points to start editing the position of the points. Some of them, in this case, they are satisfactory, so we won't change them so much. Some of them should be more accurate. In some cases you might decide that you need to add more points, so I click on cancel and I can add extra points to better represent some particular parts of the function. Always be careful with the double click, because if you click too close to existing point, then it will take you to the edit mode instead of adding a new point. Once again, it doesn't have to be perfect, and in particular when you have so many close by peaks, the main idea is to get the coarse shape of the line. In some cases, some of these peaks can be tricky, so you might need to add more points around the peak itself to correctly capture the shape. I will switch between modes depending on each scenario, when one mode or the other is going to be faster. So I just keep adjusting everything in this side. I will just make some minor corrections here to make sure that the main shape of the line is being followed, even though we don't capture every single peak on the line, only the ones that are big enough for us to care to capture. Notice that if I don't drag from the point itself, I drag from the edge, I can drag 2 points at once. Use this option as well whenever it's convenient. If you're not satisfied with the local shape of something, you can always go back and add more points to make sure that you have enough to represent the local shapes. If you try to capture everything, it's going to be too slow, and for the purpose of these annotations, we mostly care to get the overall shape, so you should try to focus on get the most accurate version of the line that you can do within a reasonable time limit, which should be roughly 5 minutes at maximum per chart. That is processing all lines in less than or around 5 minutes. Once that I do these adjustments, we can keep adding more points as required. I need to adjust some points in this region as well. You can think of this process as a multi-pass annotation, where you can first have a round of adding points, second a round of adjusting the previous points to the shape, and then another round of adding more points, and so on until you are satisfied with the shape. But once again, you shouldn't spend too much time per line. Just make sure that the points that you add are within the line and are properly adjusted, and they still represent a good approximation of the original line. That's your main goal. And I just will have to add a couple of points here and here and here, maybe one here and maybe one more here, and we are roughly well aligned with the background line. Once again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Once you go back to the original zoom level, you will notice that the line is fairly accurate compared to the original, even if when you zoom in it's not so perfect. Now I will do the same with the second line, which is now the black one. I click on edit points and I will do the same procedure. I will start by adjusting the beginning and the ending of this line, and then I will start adding some points to capture the shape. One option here is to start with a very coarse approximation. If you want to do this fast, you can just add some points to capture the overall shape of the line rather than trying to adjust every peak that the line has. And then you can concentrate on refining the line as much as you can within a time limit, so that way you won't go over the time limit and you can always use the available time to get a better and better version until you are satisfied or out of time. In this demo I will just keep adjusting this a bit more because it's still a bit coarse for what we will want to have, so I will just add points on specific peaks to keep following the line. Again, if something is not correctly aligned, we can always go back to the adjust mode to make sure that everything is fine. So I can, after adding points in a region, I can switch to edit and move anything that seems out of place. Once again, it's tempting to try to perfectly align everything, but you shouldn't spend too much time, just as much as required to get a coarse approximation of the line at every level. Sometimes we still will need to add a few points. Zoom levels are important for this process, so you want to always choose the right zoom level to make sure that you have the right precision and you don't spend too much time dragging things to the wrong place. I will add a few more points here, then I can add more points here to represent some of these peaks, the sharpest ones. If you use the right level of zoom, that will also remove the need for further editions later, because you are more likely to click in the right position that you need for a given point. I will just keep adding points here. Once again, the goal is not to capture every peak, but roughly the main ones, the ones that determine the main shape of the line. You can take as a guidance the distance between the position of the approximate line and the corresponding peak on each location and determine if you should make adjustments or not. Like in this case, the average is roughly adequate, but in some cases the difference is too much, so it's better to try to annotate those peaks. You can play with this to make better adjustments here. And with this one, we roughly have captured the main shape of this line. Once that we go back to the original zoom level, you can see that the shape is approximately the same. So once that we are satisfied, we click on accept, and we click on return, and we click on accept, and we always have to save.